Hi, I'm Mary Pope Osborne, author of the Magic Treehouse series. I hope you enjoyed Sylvan's reading adventure with Jack and Annie. As a special thank you for participating, I am excited to share with you a few chapters from Jack and Annie's next adventure, Camp Time in California, which will come out in March, next March. And it's not even a book yet. So what I'm going to read to you from are the pages of a manuscript. And you'll be some of the first kids in the world to hear this. Jack and Annie go to the treehouse and they find that it has a book in it that says Yosemite on the cover. Yosemite is a park, a huge, beautiful wilderness park in California. And Jack and Annie love California and they can't wait to go back there. And they're given a note and a mission by Morgan to save the wilderness. Well, how do you do that, says Jack. How do you save a wilderness? And Annie says, I don't know, but let's find out. And they're also supposed to be artists and sketch pictures of what they see in Yosemite. And Jack says, I can't draw. And Annie says, I can't really draw either, but let's try. It's fun. So they have a little book to draw in, and they have a pen, and they are ready to go. And they make their wish on the word Yosemite, and the next thing they know, they've landed in a dark forest. And they don't quite know what time of day it is. There's a little light in the sky. It could be morning, it could be almost evening, but it's very dimly lit. They decide to go down the ladder anyway and find out where they are. But when they start down the rope ladder, it takes forever. They go step by step by step by step by step. And Jack's getting really worried, like, this is crazy. And Annie said, it seems like the ladder's going to go on forever. And Jack said, this tree must be incredibly tall. Finally, they get down to the ground, and it's daylight now in the forest. And they look up and they see what seems to be the tallest tree in the world. It's like a 20-story building. And then they look around at the whole forest, and it looks like all the trees are 20 stories high. And it's very confusing. We're supposed to save the wilderness, but this looks so healthy and so beautiful. It doesn't need saving. And Annie's afraid. She thinks maybe they've shrunk and these are ordinary trees. And Jack goes, no, look, there's a squirrel, and he's a normal-sized squirrel from our world. So they just figure out they've come to a land of giant trees. Now, let's try to draw some things like Morgan has asked us to do, says Annie. So they take out their sketchbooks and pencils, even though Jack says, I don't really know how to do this. But he takes out his pencil, and suddenly he starts to draw the squirrel. Jack opened his book. He set the sharp point of his pencil on a blank page and stared at the squirrel, the real squirrel. Suddenly, Jack's pencil started to take on a life of its own. Before Jack could think, he drew the squirrel's head. He drew its dark eyes and small ears. Whoa, said Jack. Wow, yelled Annie, drawing a butterfly. Our pencils are magic. Yes, said Jack. He swiftly sketched the squirrel's body. He drew its long rear legs and short front legs and tiny hands holding the tree cone. He shaded the squirrel's fur on its belly, back, and bushy tail. Soon he was done. Jack smiled at the real squirrel. He knew the little creature really well now. It didn't seem ordinary at all. Look, said Annie, holding up her sketch. Perfect butterfly. Perfect squirrel, said Jack, showing his drawing. We're artists, cried Annie. So they are ecstatic. They've got the talent for drawing they never imagined they would have. And they start running around, drawing everything they see. And Annie sketches a little red bird sitting on a low branch, and then she rushes off and sketches a deer deeper in the forest that she can barely see. And Jack sketches a large butterfly. A large mushroom. And then he sketches the tree trunk, one of the great tree trunks that they've been looking at with deep grooves and reddish-brown bark. And Annie disappears during Jack's drawing of the tree trunk. And he looks up and he says, where is she? Annie and the deer were gone. Jack started through the forest. Annie, he called. He walked around one giant tree trunk, then another, until he saw Annie. She was standing in a ray of misty light slanting between the trees. "Hey," said Jack. Annie turned and held her finger to her lips. Jack stepped softly toward her. Annie pointed to a hollow in one of the giant trunks. "Whoa," said Jack, stepping back. A huge bear was sleeping inside. The bear had shaggy brown fur and long, sharp claws. "Sweet, huh?" whispered Annie. "Not sweet," Jack whispered back. "That's a grizzly bear." "Oh, okay, but it's fast asleep," whispered Annie. "I want to draw it." "Are you nuts?" said Jack. "Grizzly bears attack humans. Their jaws are so strong they can bite through a bowling ball." "No way," said Annie. "I read that," said Jack. The grizzly stirred and opened its eyes. It looked at Jack and Annie. "Yikes," said Annie. The grizzly bear huffed and hauled itself out of the hollow in the trunk. Standing on its hind legs, it looked like it was at least 8 feet tall. I read that if you run into a bear, you should stay calm," Jack whispered. "Act friendly. Wave your arms." Annie waved both her arms. "Howdy," she said. "Oh, brother," thought Jack. The bear stood still and stared at them. "How are you doing?" Annie asked brightly. The bear went down on all fours. Its head was lowered, its ears back. Then it roared. "Bad sign," said Jack. He clutched Annie's arm. He pulled her farther away from the bear. "Should we run?" she asked. "No, bears run as fast as horses," said Jack. The bear growled a deep, low growl. "Run," said Jack. He and Annie took off through the green and brown forest. They tore around the enormous tree trunks. They scrambled over chunks of bark, fallen leaves, tree cones, seedlings, plants, logs, and rocks. They ran until they came to a dirt trail. You'll have to read the book in March to find out what happens next. But I'm so glad you joined us today. And have a wonderful time with all your reading adventures. Goodbye for now. I'll see you again.